Welcome to r/PettyRevenge, where this cyclist gets some justified revenge on some young kids who throw rocks at him while he's on the bike. So you like to throw stones at passing cyclists? Prepare for the fright of your young life. This happened around 2010. I was cycling around Haringey, Green Lanes, where I lived at the time. The area is gentrified now, but at the time it was considered to be a bit rough by London standards. Those familiar with the area know that there are narrow alleyways that connect up all the side roads off of Green Lanes. So I'm cycling past one of these alleyways and I see a group of rowdy kids messing around inside the alley. There are 4 of them, aged maybe 11 to 12 and making a lot of noise, as kids do. As I pass them, they go all quiet. Sensing that something is up, I shoot them a look over my shoulder and catch one of them throwing a stone at me, which bounces off my back. This is followed by an explosion of laughter and jeering. Now, I remember being a kid and the lengths that kids go to entertain their friends. To be honest, I wasn't even that mad. But in that moment, I decide to make this a teachable moment for the little idiot and to make sure that he will never forget me. So I pretend to lose my mind. I toss my bike to the road, turn and sprint at them full speed to quickly cover the 10 to 15 meters between us. At the same time, I scream in a pretend rage and wind my arm back like I'm about to deliver a WWE haymaker and end a young life or two. They barely have time to register what's going on. 3 of them scatter like cockroaches, but the one who threw the stone freezes in his tracks. He kind of just collapses against the wall with his arms outstretched, babbling and begging for mercy. I put my face right next to his and whisper, "I'm only joking, kid." The kid blinks for a second and then promptly starts to wail loudly, like he's carrying the burden of the world on his little shoulders. I walked away feeling like I'd done the world a small service. So what are your thoughts? Was this justified or too much? You see, that's all well and good, and fair play to you, OP. That is some good revenge. First of all, it's funny. Second of all, it is teaching them a good lesson, and you can see that that kid understood, right? He knew that he was not meant to do that, and he probably won't do it again. Yes, you weren't actually threatening him, but you still got the point across and scared him enough. That's good. Secondly, I do have to say this, as somebody who lives in London myself, even a group of 11 to 12-year-olds, I would not be approaching because, to be honest, I would actually be concerned that they might have a knife. Now, as I was reading that did come across my mind. I don't know what that says about the state of the country that I live in, but hey, that actually was my honest thought. I don't think I would do that. I would just cycle off. So fair play to OP for doing this. I genuinely don't think I would. Police were called because of leaves. That's gonna cost you. This is recent and very petty, but great. My friend keeps a very clean yard. In the fall, he likes to get all the leaves before it rains and they become a pain to pull up. His neighbour doesn't care about his yard as he's owned the house for a few years and still hasn't moved in. He lives a few states away. As my friend was finishing up sucking up the leaves with his machine, some of them blew into the neighbour's driveway. Maybe 20 leaves total. My friend finished up and went inside. About 20 minutes later, there was a knock on the door and a squad car outside. The officer said they'd received a complaint about leaves being blown into the driveway. The neighbour had been watching on his doorbell cam and decided this transgression warranted police intervention. You could tell the officer was visibly annoyed, as my friend asked the officer to look at his yard and then his neighbours. The pettiness. The neighbour had an old car shipped and dropped in the driveway about 8 months ago, where it's sat ever since. Remember that he still lives a few states away. While my friend told the officer that he would clean the leaves promptly, he asked the officer if he could do him a favour. Check the car for proper tags. The officer saw the car in question and gave a slight smile. While my friend cleaned the leaves out of the driveway, the officers walked around the car, looking at the VIN and running information. You could hear the neighbour on his doorbell asking what the problem was. There's a law that any car that is in the driveway must have tags and insurance on it. The police gave him a call and told him that his car was in violation and he either needed to put the car in the garage, which would need to be lifted and dropped in the garage, or get the registration, insurance, and an e-check on the car that can't be driven, taken care of within 2 weeks, or they'll be back to tow the car and ticket him. The dude cost himself a 10-hour car ride to get his car lifted and stuffed in the garage, all over a few dead leaves. Oh my goodness me. I mean, how petty do you have to be out of state, get an alert on your ring cam, and actually do this? Call the police over 20 leaves. And maybe he didn't realize or just thought that someone was actually blowing leaves onto his property. But even if someone was putting leaves on your property, you wouldn't call the police over that, would you? You just probably say, what are you doing? Like, interact with them on the ring cam. That's not illegal to do that. It's just stupid, yeah, but like, why call the police? And then, yeah, the police clearly frustrated. OP's saying, look, we can kind of work together on this one, get a little bit of revenge for both of us, make it worth your while, make it worth my while. And yeah, phenomenal revenge. What an idiot. I mean, surely you just think about the fact that, first of all, you don't need to call the police about this, and second of all, the repercussions. Come on. I let my father pay for an hour-long phone call he was too lazy to terminate. My father is very grandiose and entitled. He expects other people to move out of his way when he walks down a sidewalk, expects others to open doors for him, prepare drinks for him, pick up his litter, etc. One of my pet peeves is also that he always expects others to terminate phone calls. Regardless if he is the caller or just answers the phone, he can never be bothered to press that red icon at the end of the call. He just puts his phone on the desk and expects the other person to terminate the call. I half suspect that he does it to eavesdrop on people if they forget to hang up. So he called me while I was doing some bathroom cleaning and I was up to my elbows in dirt. I managed to press the button to put him on speaker, dirtying my phone in the process so I could answer his call. He gets mad if I don't. But at the end I said to him, you hang up, I can't touch the phone now. He just pretended he didn't hear me and slammed his phone on the desk. After that, I could still hear him on the other side, clearing his throat, typing on his laptop, etc. But I didn't touch my phone out of spite. I finished my cleaning, took the stuff out, did some more chores around the house, etc., all while leaving the phone in the bathroom. I went back to check every so often, and he still hadn't ended the call. He only did so after about an hour. He works just over the border in another country, so enjoy paying your international rates for that, you jerk. And learn to end your own calls. Okay, this is actually unbelievable. I've never heard of anyone that doesn't hang up a phone call and expects the other person to hang it up. That is a definition of entitled. I mean, it's just brilliant, really. Imagine being that sort of person. You know what? No, it's on you to terminate the call. I'm not going to do that. Why would I waste my time pressing one red button? You can do that. I mean, this is phenomenal revenge, but it's also just so petty from your dad in the first place to never hang up a call. I kind of rate that more than the revenge, to be honest. My father keeps hanging up the phone while I'm still talking, so I decided not to call him back, and that's why his house lost electricity for a while. I just read a post about someone's dad who never hangs up the phone himself. Well, my dad's the exact opposite, and it reminded me of an incident that happened a few weeks ago. My dad disconnects the call once he's gotten what he wants out of it. No goodbye, no I'm hanging up now, no anything else. It drives me crazy. I take care of the utilities at his house, i.e. I pay his electric and phone bills. A few weeks ago, it was time to pay the electricity bill, but I was having bank issues and the payment wasn't going through. I called him to let him know this issue and to ask if he'd mind paying the bill himself this time, as it was the last day for payment. I'm not exaggerating when I say I had to call him 6 times to get just this one point across because he kept hanging up thinking I was done speaking. I almost threw my phone at the wall, it was so frustrating. I think all he got from my call was, today is the last day to pay the bill, and he assumed that I was calling to tell him that I'd paid it. I was so frustrated at that point that I didn't call back. If he doesn't want to listen to what I have to say, he may as well bear the consequences of it. 2 weeks later, the electricity connection to his house got disconnected. He called me up, shouting about unpaid bills. I calmly told him that I had called him about it, and since he kept disconnecting the numerous calls I placed, I assumed that he had it handled. Anyway, it's almost festival season in my country, and I'm so busy that I won't be able to sort out his issues for at least another 2 weeks. He's going to have to figure it out himself. Have fun taking multiple trips to the government-run electricity board office, Dad. And wow, there we go. The opposite of the previous story, and some revenge that is just as good. This one is probably more annoying, I would say, than the first one, because hanging up a call at the end isn't really that arduous, but getting cut off again and again and again when you haven't finished your point, that would really anger me. So yeah, this was probably more deserved, and it was probably more annoying as well. I mean, the first one, yeah, you just got to pay quite a large bill. This one, you have no electricity and you have to go to the board to try and get it back. Oh, that sounds awful. I quit my job of 6 years just to prove to senior management how useless and incompetent my manager was. And it worked. I started my last job in 2017. I was a part-time warehouse worker who, over a few years, was promoted into a transport admin/management role. Myself and another colleague ran our department between us, only really reporting to our then line manager if we needed support with any part of our job or time off, etc. But other than that, he trusted us to completely run things. It wasn't without its stressful days, but we had a really good thing going. Then in 2021, the business made some changes, moved our then line manager onto different departments, and we got a new designated manager just to manage us two and our department. We were naturally quite bitter about it, but nevertheless thought we'd give him a chance. He turned out to be an absolute control freak and a bully, but he was strange. He could be very supportive one minute, then a manipulative bully the next. He loved poking fun out of the fact that I had a car accident last year. He loved solely targeting me for the bad jobs and loved causing trouble between me and other colleagues. Then in March this year, my girlfriend fell ill whilst pregnant and was forced to give birth to our son 6 weeks prematurely. It was quite an awful, traumatic time, and I ended up having 3 weeks off work. When I returned, I had a mountain of work to catch up on that nobody covered in my absence, followed by me trying to catch up on it, and my manager pulling me away to do other projects for him when his other 2 staff members weren't doing anything. Then, when my work was late, was forever kicking off at me that I couldn't manage my time properly, etc, etc. Then in May, he made a major mistake and pinned the blame on me for it. It caused issues between me and 2 colleagues that I had to work closely with, and I was threatened with disciplinary action. Then I just got thinking to myself, without me running his department, he is nothing. Without me, he wouldn't have a job. Without me, he wouldn't be able to explain what was going on with his department to senior management. How I ran his department for him on half of his salary, he takes all the glory, and we get all the grief. I had one last run-in with him over this mistake that he'd made, and handed my formal notice into him the following day. It was funny over those 4 weeks of serving my notice, just watching him slowly take over my responsibilities and struggling with them. Those responsibilities that he often told me, I don't even know what you do during the day. He had to then do the horrible jobs that he used to pile on me. And on my final day in June, I told my fellow colleagues that I'll give him 3 months before either he quits or gets fired. Within the first few weeks, the department massively failed their monthly audit, which sparked attention of company directors, who were sent in to investigate as this had never happened before. Then, bang on 1 month later, I was on holiday and had one of the senior managers ringing me and texting me asking for passwords for systems, as my line manager had gone on holiday and hadn't organised anything. I ignored him because I didn't work there anymore and I was on holiday. Then he kept continuing making mistakes. He hadn't ordered essential items, which caused trouble for the site. He didn't have a clue about the job in question, as I originally was out to prove. A month after that, he was suspended from his duties pending further investigation, as management finally realised that he couldn't do his job in question. The month after that, management claimed that he quit with immediate effect. Well, I think he was fired, but either way, my 3-month prediction was right, and he couldn't run that shift without me. It really is petty revenge, quitting a job to prove a point, but it proved the point. Good riddance. Oh, and by the way, I now run my own business, have a much better work-life balance, earning more than I could ever dream of in that place, and life is fantastic. Well, to be fair, OP, I think that last point that you make kind of sums this up, really. I wouldn't even necessarily call it petty revenge. Yeah, of course, in part, you quitting your job was to prove to your manager that, you need to value this, you need to understand the work I'm doing, there's no way that you'd be able to do this without me. But also, you were being bullied, you were being terribly treated, you weren't being valued, and you could do better elsewhere anyway, as you've proven at the end. So yes, it's petty revenge, but also you had to leave just for yourself anyway. So I think it's part petty revenge, part you were just getting bullied and undervalued and should have left because of those reasons, right? I mean, people like this in general are just awful. I think I would absolutely hate to have a boss like this. I mean, I know I would. People with bosses like this, first of all, sorry. Second of all, comment down below. What's it like? Do you ever think, oh, you know what? They just do not appreciate or do not understand what I do. And I'm tempted to quit just to prove to them that, you know, what I do is pretty hard and they couldn't do it themselves. Yeah, that would leave me without a job, but I need them to know. If you've ever been in that spot, comment down below. I'm interested to hear your thoughts. All right, guys, that is going to do it for this one. Really hope you enjoyed it. Again, get in the comments. If you're on Spotify, you can do it as well. Also on YouTube, of course. If you like this one, drop a like. Give me a rating as well if you're on a podcast platform. Rate me 5 stars for this unbelievable selection of petty revenge. If you want more revenge stories right away, I've left a link to more in the description. It's also on screen right now. And I will see you guys all tomorrow for some more Reddit stories.